Human language and the forms of communication of animals are separated by such an enormous abyss that probably no other species will ever cross that gap. Nonetheless, the beautiful, complex, and diverse mechanisms that evolution has designed to allow species to transmit and receive messages are fascinating. Using almost all the senses, hearing, touch, smell, and sight, living beings convey information. Clearly, without mistakes. The topics of conversation are always the same. Love, warnings, territory, food. And there's a final form of behavior that is typical of each species, of each individual, that leads it to tell the rest of its kind, I'm here. In the Ngorongoro crater, a thriving colony of weavers has chosen a tree that might be too small to serve as the home for so many birds. The close proximity of their nests is stressful. Besides knowing how to build hollow spherical homes from braided blades of grass, weavers have to defend their territory and the threads that make up their nests, because there are lots of weaver thieves around. A female has just arrived. Each of the males that make up the overwhelming swarm of birds anxious to mate tries to get her to notice the superior construction of his nest, and only his nest, and that's why they all cheep incessantly and as loud as they can. The noise is deafening. The female has come to see if she can find something to her taste. She flits from one nest to another, inspecting them, and the males grow more and more anxious. They may scare her off rather than seduce her. The noise that they make all together is really unsettling. It's reminiscent of an old electronic arcade video game. But it's a message of love that floods the savannah. And it's unmistakable. The little tree is an acoustic lighthouse that guides female weavers. So with stories like this one, each ecosystem has a unique sound. Each place has been making the same sounds for millions of years. Although the tune changes over the course of the day. Or when it's dark. Dawn serves up the most moving sounds, probably because of the contrast with the monotony of the night noises. Birds perk up when the sun rises. They're happy to leave behind the world of shadows. Without light, they don't dare to fly, and that puts them in danger before their predators. They've survived another night and have woken up hungry. They leave their roosts and look for the best spot to have breakfast or to find a mate. That's why they're shouting so frenetically. In Brazil, These ducks bear a very appropriate name that translates to something like shrieking ducks. Curiously, they are the only ducks in the world that don't go quack quack. The flock commits a constant racket that allows them to locate each other and stay together. Their gregarious nature gives them security, like a school of fish. They can relax even while they clean themselves, since there is always someone ready to sound the alarm in case of danger. The messages that the ducks send back and forth are the ambient sound of nature. Their music is almost always pleasant. Each little bird speaks in its own way, according to how it heard its parents from inside the egg and in the nest. During its first few days of life, while it is being incubated and it develops as a chick, the way its relatives talk is permanently ingrained in it. But some singers have very strange registers, like the francolin. And others are astonishing. They don't even sound like birds when they raise their voices. This is a great bittern. But it sounds like it accidentally learned the language of water buffalo. Not all birds sing their messages. Some of them communicate like mimes, using their color, their plumage, and very studied gestures. Communication is not only acoustic, but can also be visual. Very few land animals, such as fireflies, employ the language of light. Although in deep water, where the sunlight never reaches, it's estimated that up to 90% of the species are able to produce some kind of flash. Or at least to associate themselves with bioluminescent bacteria to emit light. much is known about what these flashes are used for. Jellyfish, echinoderms, and mollusks use them, even though many of these animals have no eyes to see them. No doubt these flashes of light are information sent to other species, either to attract prey or to warn off predators. This small Australian octopus is only the size of a walnut, but it knows how to be scary. Its warning sign is a very threatening one: blinking blue rings. But it's not broadcasting right now. To the contrary, it's hiding. The usual thing among animals, whether hunters or prey, is to be discreet. To live most of the time without being spotted. The thing is, sometimes they have no choice but to move to find food. That can give away their presence, if they're not as clever and mimetic as an octopus. Octopuses are able to make themselves practically invisible. They can change the color and texture of their skin to look amazingly similar to the rocks. If it doesn't make any mistakes, if it doesn't rush things, by the time the crab detects its presence, it'll be too late. Now the octopus's hard beak is piercing the crab's shell. It hugs the crustacean tightly with its tentacles and its whole body to prevent its victim from moving its claws. The blue-ringed octopus possesses one of the most powerful poisons in the animal kingdom. The crab only suffers for a few seconds, which also reduces the chances for a claw to rip through the hunter's soft tissues. But now the octopus, with its attention on eating, would be vulnerable to an attack from behind. To avoid this, it has the ability to warn others of how dangerous it is. Like a bright neon sign, its electric blue rings alarm anyone who dares to come near. Now that's talking for life. This snake also uses rings and bright colors to say that it's poisonous. Although in the forests of South America, there are lots of colorful snakes, but not all of them are venomous. Most of them are just bluffing. This is a rainbow boa. Its scales reflect all of the colors in sunlight separately. This animal is a ring-tailed coati. The light and dark rings on its tail also transmit messages that are easy to see. They live in the jungles of South America, which are full of snakes and other dangers. Coatis live in groups in order to warn each other of anything that could be a potential threat. And a boa is one. Its erect tail, with its hair raised, is very visible. And whenever one of them sees something that frightens it, all the others see it and react quickly, like a single body. They all flee in the same direction, away from the source of danger. A supposed source of danger in this case, since the rainbow boa isn't very big and could only catch a small coati by surprise. A large band of coatis could even attack it and eat it. But its lovely shining scale have helped to give it a fearsome appearance. The language that is used most often is sound. Amphibians can only make noise with their vocal cords if the water temperature and humidity of the air reach a certain combination of very specific values. In regard to this species, we know that until the water reaches a temperature of 9 degrees Celsius and the air has a relative humidity between 70 and 80%, the males are unable to make any sound at all. But it's nighttime now. The water is at the ideal temperature. And what's more, water transmits the sound waves of the messages to the females loud and clear. Water also helps to broadcast the low-frequency growls of adult caimans. Which right now are engaged in a complex conversation. They're expressing their moods. They're talking about their readiness to fight over territory or to court a mate. Although lots of caimans can live together in the same corner of the swamp, there are countless invisible lines drawn in the water that determine the boundaries of each caiman's territory. If a large enough male crosses the limits of the dominant male, it's clear that he hasn't been careless, but is challenging the local boss. caimans have a curious way of dueling. Now their growling and hissing becomes mere background noise. The closest thing among humans to this dangerous game is a staring match. They face off and stare at each other with their toothy and permanent smiles. Here, the first one to change his expression loses. They don't move a muscle. And they've been going at it for 7 minutes. The challenger is losing his cool. Communication can also take place without the use of words. But underwater, sound travels faster and with greater precision than through air. If sound travels better through a liquid than through a gas, the best medium to transmit certain kinds of sound waves is a solid. Scientists are now investigating how elephants also manage to communicate among herds that are very far from one another. It seems that they can emit and understand infrasounds that travel through the ground. Perhaps we have overestimated elephants' memories or decision-making abilities. It may be that in periods of drought, when they choose one route over another to find water and other resources, that it isn't simply because they remember the last time they passed through there, but because other elephants that have already passed through that spot are transmitting and confirming the information. The route's good. We're not thirsty. This is the way. Many sounds in nature are hidden from human hearing and comprehension. It's dawn on the South American marshlands. The spectacular concert that the birds, amphibians, and insects create together in the regions with the greatest biodiversity on the planet is amazing. What's more, here, if you're lucky, some days you can hear a very special mammal as it joins this wild performance. It's a chorus of howler monkeys. They're hard to see when they sing from the treetops, hidden among the foliage, but they can be heard from a long ways off. A long ways. The bones of their skulls and jaws have evolved to give them a magnificent sound box. Their resounding call penetrates every corner of the forests and swamps. The unmistakable voice of a group clearly stating which house is theirs and warning all other monkeys to keep their distance. This very noisy species is a distant relative of us humans, and we have developed the most advanced language of all. But their language may have been the very beginning of the language that made us the people that we are. In the midst of all this biodiversity, the leaves on the trees conceal chemical secrets aimed at poisoning those who try to eat them. Among them, the tree known locally as the Madera Negra has developed one of the world's most complex anti-herbivore defense systems. The toxins it produces are very dangerous, but they are also, shall we say, very expensive to manufacture. So the trees don't have them available to them all the time, nor every day. Howler monkeys seem to be completely familiar with even the best guarded secrets of the strangest tree. In a field study, scientists marked off an area in which there were 1,699 trees, 149 of which belong to the species called the Madera Negra. We human beings extract a potent natural rat poison from these leaves. Nonetheless, it was observed that howler monkeys regularly fed on 3 of those 149 trees, but on only those 3 trees. When their leaves were analyzed, the scientists confirmed that they were free of the alkaloids and cardiac glycosides that cause the toxicity. The ability of the howler monkeys to choose correctly what they can eat at any given time is surprising. And it helps them to find resources that the other animals can't make use of. But the most striking thing is that they are able to teach each other how to do it. According to some researchers, this might have been the beginning of our own language. is a very exclusive type of sound. A kind of communication reserved for only two very distinctive types of animals: primates and canids. Wolves are as social and at least as intelligent as many monkeys. And their acoustic language also has some very complex and characteristic uses. Of course, not all howling means the same thing. And each wolf has its own way of speaking, with a particular tone. The type of howl also changes according to the wolf's social rank. For example, the howls of the dominant individuals are longer and louder. Howling serves to bring the pack together when it's spread out, and to communicate with the wolves of other packs. Wolf hunting territories are vast, and often their ownership of the land overlaps, such that the hunters must know at all times where their possible rivals are. Knowing where your companions are is vital, just like being able to inform them of your own position, especially when you're traveling. Like when you're migrating several thousand kilometers, many of them with little or no light. It's important to minimize the chances of taking the wrong route. Likewise, it's harder for the whole group to take the wrong route at the same time than it is for one member of the group to make a mistake with the map. In the case of migratory birds, it's believed that the individuals that emit the greatest proportion of calls are the oldest ones who know the land best, such that the flock tends to make the shortest and safest trip. When cranes travel, they maintain constant communication, even though they may occasionally lose their way and break up the formation. In that case, the most experienced cranes then begin to make louder calls than the rest, and in a few minutes, order returns to the flock. What they want to know is, who is the crane next to them, wingtip to wingtip. Traveling like that, with everybody forming a V, they manage to save up to 30% of their energy, as the group becomes an arrowhead that penetrates the air and deflects some of the friction to the following bird. But they don't make joint migratory journeys for aerodynamic reasons, but in order to increase their chances of reaching their destination. Cranes aren't social animals. That is, Individual cranes don't play differentiated roles within the flock according to their rank, or their genetic makeup, or their gender. In general, birds are simply gregarious. They need to form part of a group, to feel surrounded by others of their species, but they don't talk with anybody in particular. Except when mating season approaches, and the males and females change the topic of conversation. This is a key time of year for red deer. As autumn approaches and the first rains wet the backs of the stags, 1,000 deep voices resound from all sides like an echo that never falls silent. This is the rut, and it will be the environment's background music for days and weeks, night and day. The big stags try to convince the greatest possible number of hinds to join their harem, to choose them to mate with. But red deer hinds don't make their choice like female frogs, simply according to the intensity of the sound. Words are cheap. They want to be sure that they're with the best. And they can decide to go off with another stag at any time if their prince doesn't respond well to the challenges from those who would invade his fiefdom. The stags tell each other as loud as they can that they are strong, that they're formidable. But above all, they bellow at each other to avoid fighting. Because it's dangerous to fight. Very dangerous. But sometimes, although rarely, it's inevitable. Now the only kind of communication that the two stags understand is the force and violence of their rivals' charges. Their horns have branches to prevent bloodshed, so they rarely injure each other. But physical exhaustion is also a grave threat. The clashes between similar males usually last only a few seconds, since they charge suddenly with all their strength to send a clear message of how powerful they are. But it must be as concise a message as possible, because it is exhausting. been fighting for more than 20 minutes. Their long duel is very unusual and could kill them. But they're not getting a clear indication as to who is the winner and who is the loser. And so they keep at it. Gone by. All their senses are awake, looking for a sign that will put an end to this torture. Because the lactic acid building up in their muscles is very painful. But their genes don't interpret that torture as a definitive message of victory or defeat. So they keep going. After 45 minutes, they can barely move. But neither of them will surrender. Maybe their horns have gotten locked and they can't break free. Some legends talk of deer skeletons tied to death by their weapons. "46 minutes. This time, the language that the deer have spoken was that of endurance and perseverance. The winner knows that that is a language that the hinds value highly. This is another language that's highly valued by other females. It's a subtle, secret language that can only be perceived up close. When a tarantula drums its front legs, it's engaged in an intimate conversation. This language evolved so that it couldn't be discovered nor understood by anyone but the two lovers using it. Tarantulas developed this form of communication because female tarantulas often ended up eating their male partners by mistake. It's just that the females in this family are so hungry that when they catch a prey, they frequently kill it first and ask questions later. So to keep from being mistaken for a nice fat grasshopper, the best thing is to have some sort of precise code. In other words, a language that works like a safe conduct. Among tarantulas, whoever knows how to use this sort of Morse code has good intentions. The vibrations from the legs of a spider are barely perceptible. Among other reasons, because making a noise raises the risk of being detected by a predator. It's truly extraordinary for an animal to make a noise to attract the attention of other animals that don't belong to its own species. It's so rare that it can only be a threat. Anyone who isn't afraid of being discovered must be dangerous. When people talk about rattlesnakes, usually they talk about their venom and about the danger they represent. Fear doesn't let us look any further than that. But it turns out that what is most surprising about rattlesnakes, what's really incredible about them, is how and above all why these reptiles have developed their rattles. It's so special because it's an interspecies communication tool. That is to say, they don't use it to communicate amongst themselves, but rather to warn other species of their presence, to warn them of the risk they assume if they come any closer. It's a new idea in nature that implies that even a rattlesnake prefers not to harm other animals if it can avoid it. It prefers not to waste its venom, nor its energy. It doesn't do it out of the goodness of its heart, of course, but we certainly can't say that the rattlesnake is a double-crossing backstabber. It's odd, but the first message that we understand that a species sends us is a message of alarm. The old dream of talking with animals to discover their secrets and to be able to communicate with them gives us the uneasy sensation that the first thing they would tell us is that they're afraid of us. The predominant idea in the signs that animals send regarding us is one of fear. Every living being, even the most fearsome ones, run away from us. They tell us that in 1,000 ways, but apparently, we don't get the message.